I did see bodies. There was still some fire.
Plane went down in a violent thunderstorm while trying to land, and 36 people were killed.
This is the place our loved ones perished 50 years ago.
I didn't think I would be this emotional. I've dealt with this for a long time.
Well, I joined a news crew in 1961. One reason I loved the work was such a variety. You didn't know whether you were going to be interviewing the candidate for president or the president. I was on assignment heading west on 70, and it was thundering and lightning and a downpour of water, like it rained like heck. And we suddenly heard that over the police radios that a plane had crashed. Well, we were not that far away from it, so we just kept heading west. Near the entrance to UMSL parking lot, I could see the plane in amongst the trees, and they wouldn't let anybody go down because the plane crashed only 45, maybe 40 minutes before I got there. My first thought was, God, I hope everybody survived.
Ozark Flight 809 is a dark part of St. Louis history. It is the deadliest plane crash in our area. Passengers boarded this plane from different cities like Nashville, Paducah, Kentucky, Clarksville, Tennessee, Cape Girardeau, Marion, Illinois to come to St. Louis, but not everyone survived.
My mom was just a mom. She was just trying to take care of 3 girls. Nikki was a really fun, outgoing, confident girl. We were always together doing something, and they always pulled all the pranks on me, but that's the older sisters. My mom loved going to faraway places. She loved Jamaica, she loved Hawaii.
Was that your last family vacation?
Yes, it was. You know, when we ended up going home, my mom wanted to go to Cesar to see her mom and dad before we started school again. So my mom and my sister Nikki and I went to Cesar. I remember my mom got a phone call and the plane had some mechanical issues. My grandpa was like, let me just drive you home. Let me just drive you guys home. When we did get to the airport, I didn't feel right. I was like, I just didn't feel, I felt like I should run. And sorry. Hide.
I got to the airport in Carbondale early. I was a hearing officer for the Illinois Pollution Control Board. I used to go around the state and conduct hearings. Having been early as I was the first to check in and the first in line to get on the plane. As I was standing there between the last row of seats in the aisle, all of a sudden I felt this kind of a strange sensation. It was like, kind of like, I always have described it as like warm pillows on my shoulders that pushed me to the left, and I found myself all of a sudden standing in the vacant seat. There was the aisle seat on my left was vacant. Said, "Who's doing this?" And I looked around, and there was nobody there.
We were separated because there was already people on the plane. I was in the front row on the aisle side, and then a lady sitting on the other aisle in the front row. My sister Nikki sat on the window seat, and about 5 seats back, my mom sat. My sister said to me, since I had the window seat, you know, why would you like the window seat? And I said no. And I think about that minute of how that changed both our lives.
10 minutes, 15 minutes into the flight, it started getting dark.
I think we had a lot of turbulence at one point. I remember at one point I had to use the restroom, and I got up and said, "Mom, I'm going to run to the restroom real quick." And she goes, "Well, hurry up, because we're going to be landing soon."
I smelled kind of a burning a burning smell.
I remember everything going dark.
Oh my God, we crashed. I opened my eyes and I saw bodies and wreckage, and there was still some fire. Everybody around me died. I remember calling out, "Over here." I was still strapped in my seat, but the plane had cracked in half, and the nose of the plane looked like came back touching the tail. They came over. I remember them cutting me out of the seatbelt and then kind of lifting me out and carrying me to a house.
I couldn't move one of my arms, so I tried looking around, and I just saw debris everywhere. I did see my sister from a distance. I saw blood on her face, but I could tell it was her because of her dress. And I was surprised when I saw my mom. She was a lot closer to me, but she had debris all over her. And I just looked at her, and her eyes were open, and I said, "Mom, mommy, mommy." And she just looked at me in her eyes, and she mouthed the words. She couldn't speak. She just said, "I love you." That's all I remember until I didn't think I would be this emotional. I've dealt with this for a long time.
The passengers who had been killed laying on the hillside covered up. It was still raining, and then ambulances must have came and took them to the hospital.
I did have a broken right arm, and I had internal injuries from the seatbelt.
Did you get to see your sister again?
No. And my dad had to take her off life support because her brain was gone. It was just gone.
In St. Louis, government investigators today began looking into last night's crash of an Ozark airliner. The plane went down in a violent thunderstorm while trying to land, and 36 people were killed.
The turbojet, with 44 persons on board, went down in a wooded residential area just about 2 miles short of the airport runway. Officials say it is the worst commercial airline crash in St. Louis history. The pilot, who was among 8 survivors, told Ozark representatives he believes the plane was in a tornado and was struck by lightning.
It was raining very hard. When we got in the car to chase after the plane, we couldn't even see the plane. We were 100 yards away from it before, and we couldn't see it when we first passed by it.
What could you see that made you know the plane was in trouble?
Well, the fact that it was so low, about 70 feet. I used to live in the area, and I know about how high the planes usually are. And when he did go overhead, he seemed to be wobbling his wings back and forth. Myself only saw 2 survivors, and I didn't actually see the co-pilot, but one of my friends helped get him out. One was Stuart Sykevitz. He was the 30-year-old man. We pulled him out from under some wreckage.
Then the next thing I remember is being in the hospital on an x-ray table.
From his hospital room today, another survivor, 30-year-old Stuart Sykevitz, also spoke of lightning, but said the crash came without warning.
I saw a few lightning bolts that came real close. One of them looked as if it could have been hitting the wing. I can't tell, though. And my own personal philosophy is I had just closed my eyes and said, well, nothing I can do about it, and if it's my time, it's my time.
Investigators have recovered the flight tape recorder and continue to sift through the wreckage and personal belongings. They say it's still too early to determine the cause of the accident.
It was the talk of St. Louis, a plane crash, that first and only one in modern time. They wanted to clean it up and get it out of the public's view. While they were cutting into the plane to take it apart, take the parts away, they all went quiet because the guy hollered, "Keep quiet."
What happened? I was trying to reach back here to get a fire axe so we could cut these pitot tubes out, and I was reaching back and I put my hand down and felt something soft and it moved on me. Kind of scared me, and I looked again. It was a big old dog. Apparently it was a passenger aboard in the cargo bin. Been in here all this time.
They had the police on the highway because they were all slowing down and had to take a look.
When I was turned around and throw some luggage, I seen some people walk up and pick a purse up and take something out of it and then throw it back down.
This was a purse that belonged to somebody who was on that plane?
It was a woman's purse, a white woman's purse. That's the only looting that I seen, but there was all night long, there was spectators trying to get souvenirs and walking through the yards. The police was doing a real good job in keeping them out, but the people were belligerent. They were even cussing the police and everything else.
Have you had any trouble at all with people carting away souvenirs that might be important to you?
Most of it, I understand, is brought back. For example, this morning the police turned around and told me we have the wingtip over there.
In a week, less than a week, they wanted to get the plane out of there, and they wanted to get it into a hangar, I guess over at Lambert.
Somewhere in this pile of debris, the answer to the question of what happened last Monday night can be found. And these workers will sift through it all until they can find an answer to that question. And where do you begin with this kind of a wreck?
Well, with a general inspection, examination of all of the fuselage and the wing surfaces that you see laying here. We're looking at all of the pieces for any evidence of fatigue or failure, and in this case there's been reports of lightning, of course, and we're looking for any evidence of a lightning strike.
How long will it take you to reassemble the plane to your satisfaction?
Well, it will take, I'm sure, at least a week. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, who is directing this investigation, they will make the determination as to what extent of reassembling of the airplane for study purposes will be made.
Do you have any idea how long the entire investigation would take?
No, I don't. I believe that they intend to have a public hearing sometime in the second week of August.
1973, it was 16. The NTS has a public hearing, and it was at the Sheraton Jefferson Hotel, and my dad worked downtown, and I was off, and I took the day off to go and attend the hearing.
You're his attorney?
I'm John Rosen. I'm attorney for the Airline Pilots Association.
Mr. Rosen, what will be the nature of Mr. Link's testimony? Is he open to any and all questions by all these experts?
Certainly, he will testify to the best of his knowledge for everything that he can remember. He has given a complete statement to the board prior to this hearing on that, and he will be subject to questioning by the board.
Do you remember what happened at the time, Captain Link?
I don't think this is the time to talk about it. We will be talking about that when the time comes.
I see. He will make his statement before the board, and you will have that opportunity then to hear what he has to say.
And you're more than willing to answer any and all questions
yes.
that they may ask. How do you feel personally?
Feeling a lot better now.
Listening to the testimony, it was just a series of witnesses.
My main impression of the plane was that the pilot did not have control of it, because instead of coming over like this, it was coming over like this, and it was being pushed by the wind.
So the aircraft was not flying in the direction that the nose was pointing?
No, sir. And the nose was down, too.
Did the nose was down? What was the position of the wings?
The wings were like this. The left wing was tilted down a small degree.
Could you give
and it appeared as though he was trying to level it off.
At the time it came into my view, it comes from my back over the house, or over the apartment complex, proceeding west-northwest, I guess, to the aerodrome. But it was, in all respects, normal as far as I was concerned. It was just like the flights preceding it, until I would say approximately midway through my range of vision, which is blocked by a line of trees up on Bermuda Avenue, or Bermuda Road. I don't know, perhaps you're not familiar with that. But I'd say halfway through my vision, perhaps a bit more, a lightning strike occurred in the western skies. And at approximately this time, it was not raining. Right now, I would say the rain started almost simultaneously with this lightning and the gusting wind. But the plane started shaking, as it will do in extreme gusty winds.
There was a lot of speculation about what caused the accident, and the public hearing actually gave us a little insight on what happened. For the first time, we did hear Arvin Link, the captain, speak.
Could you state again for me what you saw on your radar scope?
I don't remember saying I looked at the radar scope at that time, but I noticed sometime between our position and the airport, there was no contour.
And what did the green color mean to you?
Normally, a cloud of this color means severe weather, possibly hail.
All right, now when you say not to go into it, why shouldn't you go into the roll cloud?
Or it will shake your teeth out.
And in what direction was that roll cloud moving?
I don't remember it moving at all.
During the public hearing, there was a minute-by-minute transcript released to the public. And it detailed the last communications between the pilot and the National Weather Team and the controller. There was a severe weather bulletin issued out, but unfortunately it wasn't received until 5 minutes after the plane crash. That could have made a big difference.
As a weather expert, what is your theory as to the structure or anatomy of this storm that seemed to have a bearing on this crash?
Well, there have been any number of witnesses that have testified the plane was parallel to this approaching squall line, and I think just basically the squall line caught up with him at a place in his landing pattern that was very difficult for him to control.
One of the questions you were asked here during the questioning by the experts was how could you get information to a pilot and to others who need to know quicker? Is this a problem today, trying to get this information out fast enough?
It's a problem everywhere in the United States, yes, sir.
The report determined the cause of the crash was the pilot's decision to continue flying. But it did note the delay of when the weather bulletin was received as a factor.
I think the tragedy could have been avoided if they just would have turned around, you know, if it changed everything. For sisters, it's hard when you have the three amigos and the middle one is gone. I never went to the crash site.
Surreal and a little bittersweet, knowing that this is the place our loved ones perished.
We put Mom and Dad on the plane in Cape Girardeau. It was cloudy and stormy, and my son said, "Grandpa, what happens if you get in a storm?" And he said, "We just fly above it."
And it's sad that that tragedy's brought us all together, meeting some of these people now. And Barb Glass is pregnant with her daughter who's here today.
My husband was on a business trip. Didn't want to have to drive that day, so he said, "I'm going to fly." Too many people have passed since then. If we don't do something now, it'll probably never be done.
Now we will solemnly read the names. Norman Allen, John G. Borton, Robert N. Boucher.
Leo J. DeMars, John A. Diebold, Ruth H. Diebold.
To give you a bit of closure, knowing that you can do this today and be surrounded by people.
Yes, definitely.
Paige V. Staddy, Henry H. Tibbs, James Clark Thompson, Gerald W. Tucker.